So eventually, this turns into this. This turns into a bigger sample. Once we approve it, it turns into the gown, which I'm going to show you, is right here. It turns into that. So each ruffle was actually placed one by one, and each color was selected alone carefully, وبعدين placed, بعدين دبسناه هون, بعدين we stitched them. So
it's a very detailed process.
Very much, yeah.
Hi, Yassmin.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you for having us today in your atelier / showroom / office.
Thank you for doing this.
It's really nice to be here. So I'm here today to talk to you about your life, your career, your current collections, past collections. So let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
So I read somewhere that you were born in Beirut and then you later moved on to Abu Dhabi, and you spent most of your childhood there. Is this when you first became interested in fashion?
Yeah, so basically my parents moved to Abu Dhabi, and so as soon as I was born, we were raised there, went to school there, and got back just for uni. So this is when actually I was introduced to Lebanon. But while I was living in Abu Dhabi, I used to take my dad's jacket, my dad's shirts, but also would style them with my mom's purses, feminine things. And I believe that this is when I started getting into clothing as a form of expression. I might have not known that I was going to want to be a designer, but I did know that this was a way that I could really express myself comfortably. And I guess this is how it started, yeah.
Do you remember the first ever garment you made?
For the brand, you mean? Or like
in general?
The first, okay, so in general, the first I ever made was actually when I went into fashion school in LEU, the collaboration with Elie and London College of Fashion. This is where I studied fashion design. So our first project was to create a white shirt. So this was actually the first piece that I ever created for the project. Yeah, it was, yeah, that was a piece.
So you had never actually played along with designing before?
Never. And I was always interested. I would sketch a lot. I would design pieces. I would design costumes. I would create kind of like mini collections in my, like a mission journal, but like a sketchbook / an idea board. And شوي it evolved into fashion, but I was never, it never was something that I actually played with my hands until I started at uni. I don't know why exactly, but this is how it happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember the white shirt that you made?
Yeah, it was an asymmetrical shirt that is like a crop top. This was like 8 years ago, so might not be stylish anymore, but no, it was a crop top shirt, white shirt, and then it goes into, like it has a train in the back, it becomes long, and on the shoulders there was like this fabric manipulation that was placed on both sides of the shoulders, inspired by the elephant skin, which is a bit weird, but like I wanted to create a texture that resembles the skin of an elephant. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Is there any particular reason you wanted to kind of make it look like that? Or?
Yeah, it's. I think that project made me fall in love with fabric manipulation and trying to translate something that's not tangible into something that's tangible. And why I wanted to use the elephant is because they're the animals that feel the most, and they actually mourn the death of another elephant. They grieve, they feel a lot of emotions, a lot of animals too, but I really related to elephants at the time. And this is something that I like to do, is to translate whatever emotion that is not being able to be seen on clothing and turn it into anything that can be visible from someone else's perspective.
So I also read that you wanted to pursue a course in Milan when you were only 17.
Yeah.
What made you take this leap?
I don't remember really, but I think it was when I actually wanted to be a fashion designer, and by then I knew, this is what I want to pursue. And it was right after school. before getting into fashion, into the fashion design program, I think a year before, the summer before, and I think it was my way to tell my parents that this is what I wanted to do, and also maybe a way for myself to see if it's something that I'm actually interested in, because at the time I also wanted to pursue different kind of, it wasn't just fashion design. It was I wanted to find ways to express my creativity. But going into that course made me realize that Hanjad, this is what I want to do, and it was so much fun, and it was enlightening generally in every sense of the way, and also having the experience of being abroad for a while helped a lot to get like new perspectives and ideas and all of that.
Milan is a very fashion-heavy capital. Yeah. How did it feel for you to be there when you were so young?
It felt great. I felt like independent. I wasn't living with my parents, obviously, at the time. So I was living, but when I was in Italy, I wasn't. So this was a nice experience. And also just being an adult in a way, like having to go to school and, deume, and then to get your stuff. And before the shops close, you have to make sure you get everything. But school ends at 6, everything stops at 6:30. So, when do you actually have time to go and get everything done? And I think this was mostly what I learned a lot from, and having to manage your own time, but also like to have fun and to meet people and to socialize and learning new things and understanding the language, because by the way, the course was in Italian and I didn't speak Italian. So the teacher would speak in Italian and you have to understand, and there's someone else translating, but if you want to directly speak with the person, it was in their language. So adapting to that at a young age, I believe was cool, interesting in a way.
Yeah, it's challenging.
Yeah.
So after the course, you came back to Lebanon. Yeah. You did fashion school here. What was that like?
It was amazing. Anjad, at first, to be completely honest, I kind of wanted to pursue my studies abroad, wherever. But it was something that we were debating with the family, should I go to Lebanon? I've never lived there. Should I move so far away? It was an unsure topic. So I moved here, and actually before I went to LAU, I was in AUB and studied business, because usually there's this mindset of you have to know a bit about the business before getting into the design. But I wasn't really convinced, so I did my first semester, and this is when I knew that this is not what I want to do, although I do want to have this base and knowledge of a business and how to run your own business, but that's not what I want to study and deepen my practice in. So I fought for it, and this is when I went to LAU. And the experience was great because it was the first year of the program, so everything was new: the building, the teachers, the curriculum. Hatta my friends in Lebanon were my first friends, because I was in the UAE before, so the whole experience was great, and I feel like it really challenged me to stay true to my identity and to understand what the difference is between each designer, and the importance of staying true to yourself and making sure that along the way, it's not really about the techniques, it's not really about the design, it's about the creative process that's behind it. At least that's how we work here. And this is what LAU taught me, or the fashion program specifically taught me.
How do you feel like you've grown since then, from the moment you started becoming a designer till today? What are some changes you've made in your style, maybe in your direction?
So the first change that I made was not really in style, but mostly in the way I think. So before COVID, before the explosion, I used to get very stressed. I still do, but I used to get very stressed regarding deadlines and the pressure and everything that you have to do, because there's a lot of deadlines that you need to meet in order to have someone buy your collection in terms of quantities and all of that. There's like a fashion calendar. So the pressure of doing so much in so little time, and also wanting it to be perfect, was a struggle for me. And then at some point I decided that when you do something that you love, you need to work at your own pace. Of course, you need to have a deadline if it's important for the sales and the growth of the business. But also it's always good to remember that when you work properly within yourself, this is when you can work properly for the sake of selling a piece to other people, or sending the message of a piece. And taking your time actually is better than stressing about it and not being able to work on it properly. So this is one. In terms of creativity, I feel like I'm growing every season. I feel like every collection, I'm gonna set a specific standard, and once I'm done with it, I look back at it and see what I can be better at, or which ideas were not translated properly, or in communications حتى how we would like people, because sometimes مثلا نحن we have an idea but the piece will not necessarily reflect it. So كمان how do we translate that idea to the people that are following our brand? I feel like this is what we're focusing on every season, to try to grow within the team so that it can reflect properly with everyone that is interested at least.
Can you walk me through your process?
Yeah. So it starts by, every collection starts with a story, and this is what's really important. So if, whatever the deadline is, if there's no message behind it or something that's personal to me, I won't be able to design any piece. I don't like to look at trends, and I don't like to base a collection out of something that is existent. It's usually either a feeling or something that we're going through كلنا collectively as humans, with the situation that are of the economic situation, كل شيء that is happening. So I'm going to give an example just to explain a bit more. So مثلا this spring summer collection that's displayed here, when I was designing it, it was actually مش right after the explosion, but when نحن بلبنان we started to خلاص readapt to this new life, new way of living. We don't want to be angry anymore. We're just خلاص, everyone's trying to make their way. At the same time, I felt like the world was also going through that after COVID and all of the changes that were happening. So I wanted personally to feel more grounded and to let myself feel everything that is happening, so that I have a clean slate and I can accept new emotions again. This is what I wanted to reflect in the collection. So at first, I decide what's my story, which is that. That part, to get to that, it takes a lot of time. I really need to tap into my thoughts, general things. I don't know how to explain exactly. And then, once I know what the story is, I try to find things or feelings that can or colors that can reflect that. يعني مثلا lavender brings you serenity and calmness. So I would introduce that color into the collection. Or the sea is something, and water and the sea is something that is really important to me. I believe it's the most beautiful thing, but also the scariest thing. So I always make sure to have water as an inspiration. So مثلا I look at fishermen and how they throw their net into the fishing, and the feeling of this release that they have when they throw that net. So then مثلا I would try to find a way to have that net visible into clothing. I don't know if it makes sense,
yeah,
but this is how it works. And it's the most difficult process, in my opinion, but also the most beautiful one, because once you get it and once it makes sense, خلاص, everything starts flowing. So you start creating pieces, and whenever it doesn't make sense, I delete them. Okay. Every piece needs to have a story. It needs to have, maybe not in every detail and every stitch وكل شيء, but I want people to, when they buy a piece of clothing from the brand, from Yassmin Saleh, it's not just about wearing it. It's about how it makes you feel and the story behind it. It's not just about a piece of clothing. So that's kind of the process. In between, we start creating fabric manipulation. We discover a lot of new techniques, which I can walk you through if you're interested. And this is also like a very cool part of what we do, because we really love discovering new ways and trying to find new techniques that are usually couture techniques, but we implement them into our ready-to-wear collection so that they're more accessible and people can wear them as well. So I think generally that's the process. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Yeah?
You did very well. So you have a bunch of pieces of fabric in front of you. Talk to me about them.
Okay. So I'm going to start with this one. Okay. So I don't know if you're familiar with this colorful mountain of Peru.
Yes.
Yeah. So in that same collection that I was just talking about, I really wanted people to be in touch with nature and to be grounded because there's so much social media electronics so many things that are happening, and I want to remind people that once we're in touch with ourselves and good with nature and our earth and we're grounded, then we can accept new things in a clean slate. So this is what I was talking about. So I wanted to show people that we can respect nature. So one of the things that I wanted to do was replicate this mountain and turn it into a dress. So I started by drawing this with paint, and I liked it. I wasn't sure if I was going to use this as a print, if I was going to use it as a color palette for the collection. Shway, I decided to create this fabric manipulation that is this technique. So I bought 27 colors that are the 27 colors of that mountain, and I tried to see which thicknesses I wanted them in, and I decided that the thinnest possible was the most that would relate to the mountain. So we cut 27 strips into 1 centimeter, and then زميناهم على الإيد. So هنا they come flat. You بتزميهم until they become ruffles, and then you place each of them one by one next to each other in the shape that you want to be able to create that effect. So eventually this turns into this turns into a bigger sample. Once we approve it, it turns into the gown, which I'm going to show you is right here. It turns into that. So each ruffle was actually placed one by one, and each color was selected alone carefully, وبعدين placed, بعدين دبسناهم, بعدين we stitched them. So
it's a very detailed process.
Very much, yeah.
But the result is so beautiful.
You like it?
Yes, it's beautiful.
Thank you. So this is one thing that we do. I can show you something else, مثلا.
Yes, okay.
This is kind of similar, so I'm going to show you this. One other process that we're doing and we're trying to focus on is the process of eco-printing. So instead of printing and dyeing and just with chemicals and all of that, we decided to experiment with flowers. So we get flowers and leaves and all of that, and then we deprocess the fabric, because when you buy fabric, they're usually filled with a lot of stuff. So منشيل كل هيدول القصص, we wash them, and then we put this vinegar and water substance, and then we lay the flowers in the design that we want to, okay? And then we roll the fabric in a way and cook it, steam it,
okay.
And then once it's done, you get the print of the flower on the piece. So this is something else that we do. We've sampled so many different techniques. This is مثلا pounding, when you put the flour and you pound it with a marteau. This is one way to do it. We also have a lot of different techniques. So we really enjoy discovering new ways to, anything that you see in the world or in nature, or thoughts that you have or feelings that you have, we really work a lot to find ways to reflect that into whatever, either a piece of clothing, into a texture, or whatever.
Okay. So I can imagine that it must be a difficult process at times working with such fragile materials.
Yeah.
And this gets me thinking, do you ever get any creative blocks where you feel like you're just not able to create the thing that you want to design?
Yeah, a lot. It actually happens in the middle of each collection.
Really?
Yeah, because I get so at first بالعكس I get frustrated لأنه what's the story وما بدي أخبر شيء إنه that's not true to what's happening right now. This is not why I do what I do. So I really need to be vulnerable for a second and understand what I want to say, because this is what I do is really to like have a deeper connection with everyone around me. So I get frustrated at first, then I get this like moment where everything makes sense and we start designing and everything, and then at some point it's like, what if no one's gonna get it, or no, what if it doesn't make sense, or what if آخر شيء ما حيطلعوا حلوين, or هيك you start questioning because you want everything to look good, and so you have to step back, reflect, and then go back to it. So there's this moment, and then نحن with the team we start talking, we're like, no, it's, let's just continue. It's a very normal part of the process. I don't know if it's normal, but at least نحن هون it's very normal.
I think it's normal.
Yeah.
I think anyone trying to create something feels this way. So you mentioned that you don't like to look at trends and you don't like to follow what the mainstream is doing. Is this difficult for you to translate in terms of sales, or do you feel like you've formed this like loyal customer base that just knows what you're doing?
I feel like it's not really that difficult, because when I brainstorm and I look into what's actually happening in this situation, I have a theory that everyone's in the same wavelength. So مثلا, I'm going to give an example. After COVID, everyone, when we got back to normal life, كل واحد عم بيرجلج بطريقته. So everyone was going through that state of mind where مثلا change is happening and we need to adapt. مثلا. Usually when you're in that behavior, you're going to want specific things. So I believe if I tap into that energy that everyone is going through, eventually the trends will be part of the collection, because I am talking about something that's currently happening. So does it make sense?
Yes.
So I believe the trends eventually fall into the collection naturally, without me intentionally putting the colors of the season or the shapes of the season and all of that. So it works subliminally.
I really like that actually. What's one item of clothing from your collections that has become extremely popular?
The tattoo series.
Can you show us some?
Yeah, of course. So the tattoo series are actually the first. When I created the first collection, I wanted to create that piece where there's a message on it. So that my first ever collection of the show, of the brand, should I repeat that?
No, it's okay.
Okay. The first ever collection was called Table Ras. It's like having a clean slate for Lebanon, the social amnesia that our parents went through after the war. ما حدا بيحكينا عن شيء. We don't know عن جد شو صار، بس نعرف it was a traumatic experience. So I actually wanted to draw the faces that are of people that maybe were part of what happened, but it was a very subliminal message that was put into the tattoo, and I printed it into like this sheer texture and made it into a dress, and I called it the tattoo top. And shway, everyone wanted that top. No one was looking into the other pieces because they really related to the message, to that texture and all of that. So shway, we started making different tattoo tops that tell the story of the collection, because at the end of the day, I'll show you a bit more about it. The tattoo series are our way to generate conversation with any follower or client or anyone who's interested in the brand. It carries the meaning through elements and symbols and all of that. So I'm going to show you a bit هيك كل وحدة. So مثلا this one is part of the collection that we're currently selling, which is the Soma Spring Summer collection. First of all, we call it the tattoo series لأنه it gives the second skin feel, and it's like a tight fitted piece. And هون مثلا, because we wanted to be really in touch with nature, we put different elements. يعني مثلا lemons, we put different branches, we put two hands trying to reach each other, but also with like leaves. This is for you to be in touch with yourself, but also with nature. We also put the story of the collection. So مثلا born again in a new world, we are given a clean slate, يعني that message. هلا each one is different. This was مثلا the one that happened right after the explosion, which is not related, but in a state of mind again is linked. So this was about change. It's about that moment where from one second to another, your life can change. And Anna, this is something that really resonated with me, and I wanted to talk about that in the collection. So I used مثلا different neurons come in, neurons, they change. I put in the body of a human being and reflected it many times to show that each movement and it's very deep, but at the end of the day we also make sure that it looks visually pleasing for people to actually want to wear it. The one that I really want to talk about is that one, which is the one for our latest collection, and we're currently introducing our limited edition tattoo series because نحن, when we created the brand, we've always wanted to raise awareness on mental health and the importance of being good to yourself and healing mentally, because نحن in the Middle East, it's not as taboo anymore, but it's still something that's not really easy to talk about. Yeah. We do take into consideration that we are a fashion brand and that they are both not really related. So shway shway, we would like to kind of raise awareness through limited edition pieces where the proceeds will go to charity for specifically mental health. And so this one is actually the one that we're gonna start with, and we're very happy with it لأنه it's the first piece that really taps into the vision of the brand. So it's been 5 years وهلأ شوي شوي we're introducing this new very important part of يعني the brand and the storytelling, but also it's really close to our heart. So hopefully people will relate to it and resonate with not just the drawings that are on it, but also the idea behind it.
When you were creating them, did you expect them to become so popular?
Never. I was actually so shocked, and حتى from the first collection to the second one, I was hesitant as to whether I should really create a new one. It wasn't a series, it was a piece. Then I realized this is how I want to express myself. And نحن we work a lot on the tattoo. Let's say a collection takes 3 months to produce. The tattoo starts in the beginning of those 3 months. لأنه what do you want to talk about? What are those elements that work and make sense in the story? How is this tattoo going to be different? Because kill season we're creating a new tattoo, so we really need to become creative so that a person that has one would want to get the other one come in. So I didn't expect it at all, but I'm really happy with how it's turning out.
From what I've seen personally, I know that Lebanon has made it challenging for designers to pursue their careers in the country, mainly because there isn't much support. The government doesn't really offer any kind of outlets for this kind of art to flourish. So I was wondering, what are some things you've done to kind of cope with this reality?
So one thing is, we moved. So مثلا after the explosion, we were we had a store that was an atelier in Jamaize. It got completely destroyed at the explosion. So instead of focusing and trying to fix something that is not for us to fix, صراحة, we decided to take the matter into our own hands, and we moved back here. We moved here, which is our family. We used to live in that same building, and we're like, you know what? Let's just start here. And then we renovated it, and then we made it prettier, and then we fixed the lighting, and then we take things step by step, and we try to not get help from anyone who will not really help us, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I focus on the bigger picture and try to find any way possible to do it, because for me it's more about taking a step and accepting change and moving, like being resilient, which is what every Lebanese person does. After every problems that we have and every problems that we face, خلاص, at the end of the day, you adapt and you grow stronger from it, and you take matters into your own hands. And this is what we do here. Nothing's going to stop us.
So what keeps you going?
I think it's the drive, and honestly, because I really believe in the deeper purpose of the brand, and I feel like maybe if it's, I don't know if it's that reflected through our pieces. Maybe when someone gets the piece, they just want to feel good. But نحن, at the end of the day, we believe that we are talking about certain things. We are sending a few messages. We are promoting, self-growth. We are making sure that, كل شيء هيك is positive. So this is why I do what I do, because I believe that there's so much that I have to say, and I hope that, eventually people would want to listen or would want to take part of that bigger picture that is not just, getting a piece and relating to it. It's about عن جد feeling good and understanding yourself and understanding the world and understanding people and هيك this whole thing.
When I first arrived here, I met your sister Farah,
Yeah.
who works with you in the business operations department. What's it like working together?
It's amazing. It's the best thing ever. A lot of people ask us like, do you fight, or how is it working with your sister? But honestly, we were always really close. And what helps a lot is that our tasks are very much different. And she handles everything that is business related, and I handle everything that is creative. And we are very much aligned in our vision. We both agree to everything. And when we do have our differences, we talk about it, and we set a meeting and we just discuss those details. And it's honestly great to have someone that is, 1, your best friend, 2, your family, and 3, who has really your best interest at heart. And I really want her to be happy as a human. She always wants me to be happy, and we put that above the brand. And I believe this is the perfect recipe in a way, to support each other and grow together.
Yeah, it's a very hard balance to
Yeah.
reach, but it's nice that you've kind of achieved it. Can you tell me about a memorable moment in your fashion career so far?
I'm going to talk about the most recent one, which was our first fashion show in Dubai. So we participated with Arab Fashion Week, and we had to showcase our collection, in a fashion show. And since it was our first time, it was actually an amazing experience because we got to travel for work. We've done it before, but not in that big of a scale. And having to work with people that also want to translate your message, we collaborated for sound, we created our own music, we created a film behind it that sends the message of the collection, trying to relate. مثلا, we did a video with the sounds of the waves and like the fish in the sea, the mountains, كل هيدول that reflect our collection. We also worked with a lot of models and a lot of people that were part of this project, and it just felt great to see how nice it is to work with people that believe in your brand or what you do. So I loved it.
Mabruk.
Thank you.
That's good to hear that you've exhibited for the first time in Dubai.
Yeah.
So have you ever had a moment of hesitation in your career, and how did you get through it?
It's never it's not a deep moment of hesitation, but of course, whenever you design something for someone, especially مثلا in the custom-made part, you want the person that you are dressing to really be happy. Again, what I try to do is make the person really comfortable in their skin and feel like they look their best with whatever we dress them with. So sometimes it's just that pressure of making sure that the person that you are designing to will be happy. And I do hesitate, and I hesitate on the design, I hesitate on the decision of choice of colors, choice of material, the shapes and all of that. And although they might be little details, they do make a big difference in the end result. So I hesitate a lot throughout the process, but knowing confidently it's part of the design process, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Where do you see the brand a year from now?
A year? So hala, we would love to be able to expand our atelier a bit. So this is one. And mostly what we really want to work on is being able to translate those messages that are very deep to us to everyone around us. So we would like people to be more aware as to why we do what we do, the message behind the brand, this communication part where it's not about, again, the piece of clothing, the story behind it, raising awareness مثلا on certain topics that I believe are very important. So hala, we have like this mission for the next year to try our best to do those things while also being mindful, يعني, because they are specific topics that are not necessarily, you know, related to fashion and clothing, but we want to merge those so that people really understand what we do. And كمان we hope that they like that. Because maybe ما بنعرف شو حيصير.
This is my final question. What piece of advice would you give to anyone looking to become a designer?
I would say to really stay true to yourself. Because once you are true to yourself and you know exactly, maybe you don't know exactly who you are, but at least you focus on those details, you're gonna make it. Because trying to be someone else will never lead to anything. So yeah, staying true to yourself.
Okay. Thank you so much, Yassmin, for having us.
Thank you.
This was really great.
It was really good, Saraha.
And I really can't wait to see what you come up with in the future.
Thank you.